Hey, what's up? I'm in one of my offices, and I don't think I'll come across too out of breath. I did both the max aerobic speed test. The type of test that I did on the Airdyne was just a 6 minute sprint and see where it maps out. And it was kind of like where I thought it would. It was maybe a little bit less than I thought. So, and then I did a couple rounds just to see what it felt like with these new numbers. So I took a little bit of time and before I came on to film. Busier week, which is kind of cool. I've been talking to some folks, and I thought this week we started to put together a calendar and some things that. Yeah, because I was struggling. It's not so much as about the ancillaries that come along with work. I'm just used to being busy and being on the run and whether it's traveling, etc., and managing things and without a lot to do, this has been a little bit of a challenge. So more calls. Had some more calls this week, and one of the calls I had earlier in the week was in regards to taking a look at a biomechanical, not so much the data. The data was in this narrative, a video narrative with the therapist that performed the test on the athlete. And I had evaluated this individual in late December, right before the NFL playoffs started. And now we're obviously several months later. And I remember when I did that, I kind of felt bad because this wasn't a situation where coming in for a couple days could really manage an appreciable difference for what that individual could or couldn't do on the following Sunday. And I'm like, oh man, because look, it's important to value your time, but it's way more important for me to be able to deliver. And it was interesting that the data that I was able to generate from the evaluation, which I just basically recommended, look, this isn't something that's going to be handled in a week. This is the first phase of training. And I put a tweet out, I don't remember how long ago, where if there is a suggestion and when that suggestion is maybe this is a situation to back off of fitness and only work on movement, that's a very, very big step, and it's a very, very dangerous statement. And the couple times where I have suggested that, it's been really crystal clear, and that was the case here with this individual. And the beginning part of this narrative that he did without his trainer or myself being in the mix, and it's not that. I know I would probably never tell somebody not to do something, but I would give them a lot of information as to why it may or may not be a great idea with some of the other things that are being packaged. It was interesting because in the beginning it appeared fairly consistent with the findings that I had on a physical examination and treatment over a couple days. And then as it went on, it got a little silly. Now it was this. I even looked it up and I solicited to learn more about it. It was very, very impressive motion capture and putting the body into cartoons and all sorts of data points and graphs and etc. and all this stuff that gets real catchy and very, very attractive for anyone to look at it. It's really packaged very impressively. And in the beginning, I'm like, okay, yeah, like I can see this. Well, okay, is it this? Is it this? And with his coach, we came up with a couple ideas of how we could sift through how we would think and consider with that data. But we came up with a couple things that were really troublesome, and really it's going to segue into how I often talk about the evaluation should be very, very complete, and it should be very, very inclusive, particularly of a lot of other subtopics or sub-qualities other than what that one evaluation. So the biomechanical evaluation, it certainly doesn't measure everything, and it's very susceptible to some of the mistakes that I think we can talk about when that type of data is something that's presented in a presentation, whether it's in published research and there's this defined message. But as that presentation of the we were watching went on, yeah, it's like, okay, all right, well, that's pretty incontrovertible. I'm not sure it's relevant. We found out that the player from a workout the day before was very, very sore. Okay, well, did that impact this snapshot of what this individual was doing in terms of generating force, in terms of generating impulse, and the temporal statements of those types of measures? There was a single leg squat appraisal where one leg, on one side he did like a pistol technique, and the other side he did like a unsupported split squat. So where the leg is being flexed and the pistol is being extended. There's no way that that's going to be measuring apples versus apples on the right versus left. And of course there was a significant message of right-left asymmetry, and a whole lot of correlation without suggesting causation, because of course you look for things, you'll find it, and that's the side that this individual had some symptoms and some tendinopathies. So yeah, it was the point of the message was not to suggest that this thing is so awful, but I think is, even though it was, if we put it into a better perspective, and I'll take you to another biomechanical evaluation, and I'm not even sure it's just biomechanics, but it was really generated around force plates, because obviously right now and for the last several years in elite basketball, force plates. So a lot of elite basketball players are getting this type of studies done, and there's some commercial outfits that doing some varying things. And I had some athletes that I just wanted to watch. I didn't want to. We really had a good perspective of what this information was going to do or not do for us. And to go over some of the things that I saw, it was obvious that we're looking at some of those force measures. I said that, look, I'm not a biomechanist. I have no comment on the technology. Anything that I would say about that would be challenging the expertise that I don't have. So we didn't go down that road. It looked like they were running and jumping and bounding in ways that were very, very relevant to explosive sports. So I don't know what the research says that this movement is better than that one. It looked like there was lots of things that appeared to be applicable, to be trainable, and very useful for repeated jumping, etc. But then the data, which of course is presented very professionally on a giant 150-inch screen, and you got arrows and colors and and slow motions and all these things that can become very, very impressive to someone that is impressionable. There was lots of things that started to bug me, and I made a little list that we can really start to appreciate if we evaluate messages of biomechanics, because biomechanics don't lie. They are an instant snapshot of exactly what's happening, but they don't always tell the whole story. And obviously a great biomechanical appraisal using technology should be accompanied by some kind of a different evaluation of what joints are capable of doing. If you can't do something that is going to have an efficient strategy and high force, well, you don't know that the reason if they have poor force or poor measures off the force plate is because they can't even get into that efficient position in the first place. So before we look at measuring something that has significant output, like these force plate measures, we should be very, very keen on looking at, can joints get into the right positions to absorb and adapt to stress. So before we suggest that there is a solution based on what the force plate is showing us and what this motion capture is showing us, let's make sure we also have perhaps a motion capture of body weight with very, very slow and very, very closed loop and very, very coached. This way we'll know that maybe there is no chance to develop these very, very impressive output measures if mobility and stability is simply not available. And that doesn't make the force plate information any less valuable. It just does take you away from the solution that evaluation might lead you to. And I think that's where the issue is. I think people that love doing these force plate measures or these motion capture analysis, they're very, very impressive. They appear very, very detailed, but it's probably what is there that person's very passionate about. They may not be passionate about some of these other types of measures. Some of the other things to consider would be consistency. We talked about that single leg squat that you did two different ways in the one examination. if you're gonna take one movement and you can do 5 reps, which one are we going to record? And were any of them good? Or were they good in the beginning but not good towards the end? And within those 5 reps, you should do everything with 5 reps. You can't do 5 on one and then 3 on another. We also should have some kind of consistent rest. If we're looking at repeated explosive movements, the creatine phosphate system probably has a very significant work to rest ratio, so that at least you maximize the degree of intra-repetition recovery of that energy system. Because if you don't, you're now testing a different energy system. And of course, as fatigue ensues, there is a chance that the motor strategy and certainly output are going to be affected. So I think there's a degree of consistency there. I think when there's implements, maybe the person just knew it doing the movement, and you could have stiff ankles, and so it's going to be tough to get down to grab a trap bar. But if you've never done a trap bar jump squat and you're going to significantly comment on the output measures, hey, well, maybe it's because the kid never picked up a trap bar in his life, and that's why you're seeing some of these things. So I think we should definitely look at the slope of output, particularly if there's not this very, very consistent work to rest ratio in that respects the relevant energy systems of what you're testing. So biomechanical testing is very powerful, is very appropriate. It's something that I think it should be very much a part of a complete movement system evaluation. However, it can't be the only thing. And because it's technology, because it's got an opportunity to be very, very flashy and a lot of sizzle, I think we can get the kind of the wool pulled over a little bit. I think it needs to be complemented with a good movement evaluation. We should also have very, very good consistency of the energy systems that we're measuring. We should not be using novel measures. We should be using things that anybody can do with very minimal coaching, and also taking a look at is today even a good day to be doing that type of movements? If you don't sleep well and you fly in that day and you played in 3 All-Star games across 2 countries over the last 5 days, I'm not so sure that output is always going to be premier. And again, that's not in itself the problem. The problem would be commenting on very specific solutions based on what the cameras and the force plates were telling us. I think that's something that we talked a lot about this week over a couple calls after we did the first one, and just to get my thoughts ideal, and these are some of the things that were swirling around. So biomechanics, once again, doesn't lie, doesn't always tell the whole story. I'm going to show you my way.